I made it what I
Yeah,
wanted to
Fred
hear.
and Barney.
And Velma's in there somehow.
Oh my god. Welcome to another Southern NASCAR episode of the F Movie Podcast. We won't explain. That's, we're your hosts, Mason, Dillon, Nathan, and Price, in that order.
And we're recording this in another amazing storm that's happening in our area.
Yep.
We brave blizzards, we brave tornadoes, we brave
Rain,
thunderstorms.
sleet, or snow, we're gonna deliver just like the post office.
We are the UPS.
Like the postman.
USPS. USPS.
Just like the postman.
UPS just wants straight up not deliver shit.
Just bring a single tear to a child's eye.
Yeah.
I got my letter.
And then we smack the shit.
But we're gonna make sure to pass him on the first go.
Yeah.
Make him feel.
Oh my god, the postman references. Anyways, on today's episode, we are reviewing what, Price?
We are reviewing Poor Things.
Which
with
is
Emma Stone, Mark Ruffalo, and Willem Dafoe.
Willem Dafoe.
But he's the friend in this movie.
Yeah, he is. He's delightful in this film.
You've been sitting on that for a while. That was a good one.
A
Keep it
little
waiting.
bit.
What's the plot of this movie, Price?
I mean, it's a pretty simple plot that we say all the time, where basically, simple as in it's easy to explain, don't think about it, basically this woman, Emma Stone, her name's Bella Baxter, she commits suicide while pregnant. A mad scientist finds her, Willem Dafoe, finds her, she is dead at that point.
She jumps off a bridge.
Yeah, but like she's actually dead. I was like, who's dead, who's alive?
The mom.
So Bella's dead, but the baby's still alive. So Willem Dafoe, you find out later in the movie, takes the fetus out of Bella, takes the brain out of the baby, puts the brain in Bella's body, and let's see what happens.
It's like a Frankenstein.
It's Frankenstein.
And he very much looks like a Frankenstein himself.
Yeah, Dafoe.
Yeah, he is.
Let me finish the plot summary.
Yeah. So that's just our intro.
That's just the intro, giving you the basis of this movie. The rest of the movie is Bella figuring out how she wants to live her life, going through all of these experiences to eventually become who she is and come into her own personhood.
It is.
That's really the movie, and there's a lot of hijinks in this movie.
Hijinks ensue. I think it wouldn't be a over complicated way to describe that. This is very much a coming of age story.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, this is a woman's coming of age story.
An accelerated coming of age story.
Woo! Yeah, it is.
I'm glad it was accelerated.
Yeah.
That would have been
Coming of age.
terrible.
Listen, if they had all that sex going on while they were children, it would have been weird. And I'm glad it didn't do that.
Which I think, let's not do the sex part right now, because I think that is a very important part of the movie that we do need to talk about.
It absolutely is.
But I think also something that we need to talk about is just how the men in this movie are and how they kind of force themselves upon Bella. Like, one of the strangest things I thought about this movie is McCandles, I can't remember his name, something McCandles. So there's Willem Dafoe, there's his student, and his student comes falls in love with Bella, who Bella is at this point like a 2-year-old toddler.
Yeah, well, doesn't he say that she's like retarded at some point?
Yeah, no, he definitely says retarded.
I think so.
Movie's language, not ours.
She's the most beautifully retarded person.
Yeah, that's it. There's a lot of comedy in this movie, which will be another section, but we're talking about just the men in the movie first. With
the women are watching this movie and saying, I'm still choosing the bear in the woods after this movie. You know what I mean? Like, if you don't get that reference, then Annabeth does, and that's all. And Jill does, and that's all I need to know. Paying attention. Anyways, so the men in this movie are often seen as predatory at best. I think is just kind of the loose way to summarize it. Even Willem Dafoe
has intentions in a way.
Is a monster for what his actions are. Yeah. Although, that being said, he comes off as very lovable and likable in this film still. I don't know,
which is strange.
There's a
He is a very tormented character.
Yes.
Well, and he just has a lot of experiments and all the time working and getting through something.
He's so incredibly messed up from his father.
Yeah.
That he just perpetuates all the horrible things in just an attempt to justify all the horrible things that happened to him. Continuing the work.
But there's something really interesting. I know, nice, right?
It's crazy.
Right?
Whatever.
There's something about the tones of this movie that really intrigues me. It's very the word I would say, I guess, would be colorful, in that it will...
Sometimes which is funny, because it opens up...
In black and white.
Well, it doesn't... It doesn't... It opens in color.
Oh, it's
but,
the bridge.
Yeah, there's a lot of segments of this that are in black and white.
Yes.
Mostly the ones where it's like... The moments where Bella as a character is stifled.
Yes.
Like, I think that's kind of the deliberate tone there, is that they make those, like, a black and white, like, almost past sort of look while she's stuck in the house before she gets free.
Right.
Are we wanting to talk about directorial choices at this point? Because, man, I have a lot to say.
I want to talk on the technicals, because I think this movie has a lot going on with it, good and bad. Like
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Visually, it is very...
When it wants
like,
to
it's
be.
very fantastical for no reason at all.
Yeah.
Also
like,
true.
The cruise ship is amazing.
Absurdly fantastic.
All the skies are, like, just
when they're
a wash of colors
Yes.
and just bizarre... Like, everything looks like it's just dripping with just, like, some sort of, like, drug-infused...
Yeah. Like an Alice in Wonderland, but like...
Yeah.
I don't know. Not
but it's
inside
also
of the ground,
like it's all wrapped under like an Art Nouveau.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even in Alexandria, it feels like this. Whenever they're showing this disparity between like the slaves and the upper class.
Oh yeah.
Like the arts.
That absolutely ham-fisted.
It is very heavy, but
well, I mean that's. Yeah,
but the movie's vibe is very like
it's
extra, you know. So like I won't fault it. I can see where that might turn you off, but I was like, that's in line with what the movie's been doing so far. If that was the only extra part, I'd be like, that feels a little bit much. But because this movie is extra across the board, I'm like, okay, yeah, that just tracks. Like, that's what this is how that movie would display this place. So I don't feel like it feels weird for me. I do think that the tone of this movie, like I was mentioning earlier, is really funny in that it's like, it is very much like, if you mute this movie, you're watching a horror film. Like, if you're only watching what's going on screen without, like, hearing music or hearing how they talk...
She looks like...
Yeah.
Yeah, the corpse bride in you know, most senses.
Right.
You know?
But then whenever you're seeing, like, the little... Especially in the early parts of the film, you're seeing Willem Dafoe be, like, this kind of loving father. And then you're, like, slowly finding out how he got there in the first place, which is still being, like, a kind of terrible father. And then a really awful human being for, like... him just doing it, but the casualness of like him describing the circumstances is like so comedic in its execution, and honestly, it landed for me though. Like every time like he was just like, yeah, so the only reasonable thing to do was to put the baby's brain into the adult body with it. Yeah. And I was just like, what the fuck? Like, but I had like that's a moment that the moment like it was clearly like, yeah, why not? Well, I just could, and there's a moment of levity to what again like on screen is still very like horrific. It's Frankenstein on screen.
There's a lot of slapstick.
More modern.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, think of all the animals that are wandering around.
Yeah.
Like
the hog chicken.
It was like a chicken with a hog's head,
Yeah.
and then like a dog with a duck's head.
Well, randomly he would be like blowing balloons, and it just had like I can't remember, but that was just part of that whimsical, fantastic.
No, he was not blowing balloons.
So that was that machine that he was hooked up to because his dad had removed some.
He removed his like one organ.
He's like gastric
organ just
things.
to see if that was needed.
That's right,
yeah.
It turns out it
Yeah.
is needed,
Yeah.
and he was having to use that machine. And then after every time he used it, he made that big belching, weird-looking bubble that
Yeah.
would pop,
That
and then
floated
Bella would be
around for a
clapping
sec.
about it.
Because he was trying to digest his food, and that's when he would like eat something like.
And the gases created from it would have to come out because that's what the organ did. That deranged but very funny. Like he's like, yeah, my father.
This movie is very whimsically disturbing.
Yes.
The house is very bizarre. It's like got this look to it the whole time where you're just like, I don't know if any of this is actually real.
Yeah.
Because, like,
It looked like
the
an
way
asylum.
the wall is kind of like stuccoed and like painted,
Yeah.
but somehow like the door frames almost like merge with the walls at different points. Like it's a very bizarre structure, and like there's also just secret doors where they're like opening up a door at one point where it's like half of the cabinet is the door.
Yeah.
And,
I want to live in this house. I won't lie. Like this seems like a neat house.
yeah. Well, I
With
mean,
Margaret Qualley just like painting on the wall
Sure.
and just saying random words.
Yeah,
That was
man.
the second experiment, girl.
Yeah.
I could,
Oh, okay.
I
I
could
didn't
do
know
worse
who
than
that
Margaret
was.
Qualley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so, anyways, our main character bumps into, I feel like plot-wise to cover,
Yeah, for sure.
meets Mark Ruffalo's character, who's just a total...
She doesn't really meet him. He kind of accosts her.
He does.
No,
He does.
He writes up a marriage contract, a very binding marriage contract for the student to marry Bella.
Yes.
And because of how extremely strict it is, he's like, oh, this has to be like a super interesting girl for this to be so justified. So he then sneaks off through the house to discover her while she's just playing with herself in a closet.
Yeah.
And,
probably for the 10th time.
Then he helps her a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, and this is that, like, deviant, debonair character, you know, is very, like, sexual self-driven. And
he's supposed to be like one of those ones that's like very independent and like never stays with anybody for very long sort of type.
He is by far my favorite character in this movie.
Oh, he is so fun.
I loved Mark Ruffalo in this movie. I mean, this may be my favorite performance of his, only behind Foxcatcher. But he's just so fun. Just like the slapstick that he gets into, and just how... Like, one of the scenes I can remember the best from this movie is the dance scene.
Where he gets into a fight with, with like an old bald guy, and then just starts fighting
everybody. Random dude.
It's like the fight doesn't include everybody at the dance, but it does by the time Bella's leaving.
Yeah. And Mark Ruffalo is just getting into it with everybody after doing that very weird dance with Bella, where he's like in front of her and she's behind him. He's just like kicking his legs up. Woo! That dance scene was so fun.
Mark Ruffalo was great in this, and I think it's like the rise is only matched by the fall with that character too.
Oh man, when he crashes after getting his money stolen.
Yeah, because she's just like, oh yeah, I gave it to some poors, and he's just, what? And whenever they get to the city, and it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse for him, and then he ends like, minor spoiler, it's all spoilers now, but when we finally see him again on the tail end of the film, he's in the asylum, and it's just like she's driven him so crazy at that point. It's just so...
That's not the last time we see him.
Yeah, that's true. He pops in for the wedding. But, no, up until then, though, like, you love to see him rise, and you love to see him fall. It's both... It's a fun ride with that character.
Yeah, so to continue with things, he... later meets with Bella and says that he's going to like take her away to like see all these different sights and such. And she then is telling Willem Dafoe like, oh, by the way, I'm going to be sneaking out
and running away from
home with this person later. And he's just like, oh, okay.
All right, yeah.
Like,
you gotta do what you gotta do.
I'm not a helicopter parent, you know, you gotta explore. Which, I mean, it goes back to like the whole experimental process that he has with it. You know, he obviously made her to be like, all right, well, yeah, that makes sense.
A human being, this would be the next social step.
Makes sense, yeah. And then all the banging starts.
Yeah, which all the sex starts.
I guess. Let's get to the sex.
Yeah, we got to talk about the sex.
It is in your face.
It's
constant.
Gratuitous.
It is
you see everything.
Every like 12 minutes probably, and probably more often than that.
For the remainder of the movie, and less and more. But for the most part, we're getting some nudity for about every 10 to 15 minutes.
It's nudity heavy towards the end. That's all it is towards the end.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
I personally thought it was very tasteful. Great use.
I mean, it was funny.
I think. I mean, it did several things, right? Let's start. It's not just. I mean, it's definitely not porn. You know, like there's so many times where it's like, all right, they're showing it as a passion, then they're showing it as a comedy, and then they're showing it as like a developmental process. It's like, again, this is very. It's not just sex for the sake of sex. It is very much a narrative device to sit there and get us from point A to point Z.
Which, like, I was thinking after this movie about how, like, a lot of times, like, in the older kind of movies, like 70s, 80s, 90s kind of movies, it was like, you got the plot going on, then you gotta have the sex scene.
Gotta have
gratuitous for no reason.
You have this beautiful actress, so you gotta see her naked at some point.
Why wouldn't she be topless? That just feels silly.
And that's not what this movie is at all. I mean, Emma Stone by herself is a gorgeous, gorgeous woman, but never once in this movie did it feel like they were like, we just need to show her naked just for the sake of it. Like, every time that there was some form of, like, nudity or sex, like, it was very important. Like, it was either showing how she's developing into her own woman.
I don't think it was important by the 4th or 5th or 6th or 7th time.
No.
Like, I get it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm just like, man, she's already done this once or twice. Like, I don't know. I understand that she had I don't know what you call that. Like, nymphomaniac kind of.
I think if you had any, like, I think it's really just like it plays out the idea of what if you had a young mind and a fully adult body.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
I think that is the logical thing that would happen.
Because Bella even says at one point, she's like, "Oh, like your bits can make you feel this good. Like, why aren't you all doing?
Why
this
don't you
all
do
the
this
time?"
yeah,
all of the
well,
time.
and like
Yeah.
the maid is like
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
pissed off, and she's like, "Here, I can help you."
And then
Yeah.
she starts trying to jam
Starts, like,
it,
groping her.
squashing
Yeah.
her or something.
Mason, I think that the best way to reframe this, right? If you were, and this might be land more for me than it will for you, but you'll get it. If you were a kid and you had unlimited access to sweets, would you not just be eating sweets all of the time?
Yeah, I mean, if you had access to them.
Which,
I mean,
that,
and
which that is also illustrated in the movie when Mark
When she gets to
Oh,
Ruffalo.
yeah, when she-
Alexandria. or whatever
When
it
Mark
is.
Ruffalo's like, you only get one. Like, that's all that you need.
Yeah.
That's all you need. And she's like, why? And then later when Mark Ruffalo goes to sleep, the first thing she does is get like 20 of those croissants and is
Yes.
stuffing her face. And then she explores and it's like, all right, I've got my fill of exploring, eating. Now I want to have sex again. And Mark Ruffalo's like, even like I have
Yeah.
a breaking limit at like 4 times.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I mean, something can say about like the, I don't know, the evolution of her, because she does grow up towards the end a little
Yeah.
bit more. She wants to be like an entrepreneur. She wants to kind of.
She wanted to be
hone
like
in
a
a little
scientist as well for a while until
Well,
she
I just meant like the whole like in the brothel or whatever
Oh,
you want
yeah.
to call it. You know,
Mhm.
she does make her own money and understands somewhat of the business side of things at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it is. Maybe it is just like a going through puberty or going through the sexual active phase. But I thought it was way gratuitous. I thought that it was just too much. They had the whimsical factor going on already.
Mm-hmm.
It was very pretty. You had every time they pointed back to Willem Dafoe and his little sidekick, it was fun. The movie stayed fun. And then next scene, nudity. Next scene,
Yeah.
banging up against the wall.
Yeah.
Banging from the behind. Like, just every single time. You said it was funny.
Yeah, I thought it was.
A lot of
pretty
times,
much
I thought
every
it
time.
was.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That
It
being
just-
said,
Like in the brothel, all the different men.
Yeah.
The
Like-
one guy on the floor, like
That
Yeah.
was insane.
Yeah. The
And,
one-
like,
the
there
one that
was-
brings
it
his
was
kid
full
in.
Frontal. Oh yeah, the
That-
fucking guy bringing his
that
two
one
kids
bringing his
in.
kid was so cringe. Kelly and I were watching that, and Kelly was like, just like, what is happening? And
And
I was,
then whatever
I was
she's like,
losing
and you know,
my
to help
mind.
things along, sometimes
You
some
just-
light choking or a little finger in the air.
Yeah, a little finger in the butt will do it. For
I
you.
was dying laughing that
Yeah.
whole scene because
Yeah.
I just thought that was so funny. And
You're
Emma
like,
Stone
I've
was
never
just like,
felt so seen and heard. in
and
that
Emma
scene.
Stone was just like, you want me to like choke you? Like, will that help a little bit? The kids are like, one of them's like, write that down, write that down.
Yeah.
And the other one
One of
just
them was taking notes. The other one was just staring.
Just
there.
staring.
was
Yeah.
horrified.
Yeah.
Absolutely horrified.
I love it. This movie does so much to paint uncomfortable situations and tones that are not representative of what we're seeing in a way that I just keep finding fascinating. Like that's maybe my biggest maybe that's the biggest compliment I can give this movie is that it is an interesting movie throughout pretty much the entire time. I think
Like, visually and
Yeah.
just content wise, it's going like full tilt the whole time.
right. I think that the only thing, and we're running a little bit to the end part here for me, but I think the only part that I think was really important narratively, but I didn't feel like was executed the best, was by the time that she goes through this whole sexploration journey, she works at a brothel, she crash and burns Mark Ruffalo's character, and then she comes back home because she finds out Willem Dafoe's character is dying.
Mm-hmm.
God.
Yeah, and then she ends up getting married, but at the wedding, Bella
She's
Baxter.
she's marrying the student.
Yeah, she's marrying the student, not Mark Ruffalo, for those keeping up home.
Yeah.
At home. But her Bella Baxter, not necessarily who she is now, but the body's previous
Well,
husband.
who
She
is
wasn't.
now
She was like
is
Victoria.
Bella.
Yeah.
It's-
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we're getting into semantics, but anyway, so the prior brain's husband,
Her mother.
yeah,
Yeah.
comes in and he's just like, "What are you doing? I'm taking you away. Like, I'm taking you back home." And everybody was just kind of like, "Oh yeah, I guess that makes sense."
Yeah.
And then
And she's like, yeah, I'll totally go.
yeah, and then she goes, and then for like the next like 20 minutes, we're playing the like, oh, I'm trapped in a house because this guy is like a psychopath, and I can see why she originally killed herself. And some of those parts I think are like, again, I think that's an important thing to explore for this like the overall narrative of it. I just felt like it kind of dragged. It was the time
Yeah,
I
it was
had the
definitely
least
a
fun.
tie-in.
Big
It was.
Yeah.
I get that it's like it kind of it over hammers in the point, like much of this movie is just really being like the rich are awful, horrible people,
Yeah.
and selfish and like psychopaths or whatever. And that's what this is doing
Right.
very heavily.
Yes.
Because the guy talks about how him and his wife liked each other so much because they were so mean and cruel.
They were
and enjoyed
evil
doing
people.
And just
everything.
torturing the servants.
Torturing the servants, yeah. At all times. Although, that being said, I did get some community class. Anytime it would just be like he'd be putting any of the servants were putting the food on the table, and immediately you would see the gun come out. And I was just like, the first time or two, I'm like, all right, this is pretty funny. And then it was like, all right, I feel like we've kind of hit this joke a couple too many times. But that part of the movie definitely dragged for me. So whenever it start to finish on that part, I was like,
Yeah, the ending kind of sucked.
let's get to the
Yeah.
let's wrap.
20, 30
It
minutes.
did. It was unneeded. This is a fat movie, which
Yeah,
that is the biggest critique for me. It is long.
Speaking of endings, though,
Oh.
did you all think that they were going to put, basically put God's head in the dad's body? Because that's what I thought.
Yeah,
was gonna
I
happen,
thought
and
they were
not the goat.
I for sure thought they were going to put his body or his brain into
Well,
somebody else's.
with
brain.
how much they were learning throughout, like they were both like experimenting and like cutting bodies and like studying the brain and like doing all. They were taking notes the entire movie, so
Right.
that would not have been too far fetched.
I feel like the only reason they didn't do that was just because they wanted the story to end with Bella being like independent and
Yeah.
like controlling
And not having her
that
dad come
household
back.
She-
afterwards.
She
It's
she
the
earned
only
that fate
reason.
to be able to
Yeah.
control her own fate at that point because God's character existing. The problem is that again, even if we're kind of endeared by him, he's a maniacal.
Yeah,
man.
it's like things don't end on necessarily a good note if he's still alive.
right. So I think like again the wrap up I think all comes together kind of at the end with it, but the padding for that last little like 20 minutes before we get to that ending, it does feel like we should have either got that at some point in between all of that stuff, but it feels like it was like, hey, before you complete the game, you have to complete this DLC we just added. You know what I mean? Like,
That was just another big name. I say that. I have no idea who that guy is. He's
Yeah.
very
I don't have
famous.
any idea.
Yeah.
Annabeth, who is that actor? Do you know the one?
The one that she's originally married to, and he's
Yeah.
like very like stoic, and
Annabeth's off screen.
he almost looks like a lieutenant or something.
Yeah,
of the-
he was like
of
a
the
colonel
army.
yeah, he was.
He was
Yeah.
a general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyways, I mean, that's a lot of our feelings. Any other random catch-alls before we get into the shape of the film?
The music on this was pretty wild at times.
Yeah.
That's another thing I really did enjoy that I was needing to bring up.
You
It was
did
just-
enjoy. Okay.
No, I
Yeah.
did not.
Okay,
No,
thank you. I'm with you there.
No, it was just, it sounded just like noise for the sake of noise. Like, I know
Yeah.
it was,
Well, and
It
half
was
the time it
very
was like
discordant on purpose.
yes, people
Yeah.
would like just sling on bells, just like boom,
Yeah.
boom, boom,
Like,
and they were. It was almost like a child was
There's
playing a
one
xylophone.
point where there was a band playing and it started off sounding just awful and just slowly kind of worked itself into like an almost good sound. I think
Yeah.
that's what the
I think it
dance was that during the dance,
Probably.
I think so. Yeah.
which was very strange. The music in this is very strange, but I think it's supposed to be there to like kind of be off-putting.
Yeah. I think its whole purpose is to be like as disorienting as like it wants
Like, a
you
lot
to
of
feel.
this movie is meant to be off-putting.
just
Yeah.
the way that they use the camera that is meant. Like, there's so many times when
the
they
moments
use the
where
fish
it
hole.
goes into the fisheye.
Yeah.
That annoyed me.
That
It
annoyed
annoyed
me
me so much.
What's his name?
Christopher Abbott.
Abbott.
Yeah, that sounds about
I don't know.
I've never seen anything
I never
he's
would.
been in.
He looks like he
Really?
makes money as an actor.
He
Anyways,
looks like he makes-
no, yeah, the fisheye lens randomly in scenes was like I will agree. That's a cinematography choice that I could have done without.
I wonder if it's meant to like harken back to anything because a lot of this movie feels like it's trying to play on much older movie tropes and trying to just make you feel
Sanctuary.
more like it's a Frankenstein, like a different take on a Frankenstein style of film.
Right.
Yeah, especially with that black and white. I mean, especially that first like 20 minutes
Yeah.
is
Mhm.
very much like a Frankenstein kind of movie until she finds out what she can do.
Yeah.
I will say though, I think this movie got snubbed on the costume and set design.
Did they not get costume?
They didn't get costume set design. They didn't get original.
The costumes, we haven't mentioned that. The costumes were amazing.
Yeah.
Like Bella.
Just the whole
looked
world they
great.
created
Yeah.
was very good.
Yeah.
I mean, it was.
It was exceptional.
Yeah. But I mean, the only thing that I've heard about this movie was Emma Stone's performance and everything, which Like whenever she was just like stabbing the eyeball, like I was like, all right, she's just acting like
And
a
at
child.
one point,
you know?
she just like is tugging
Playing with the
on his
dick.
Playing with it,
Yeah.
yeah.
Which I found funny.
Of course you did.
Of course I did. You know what? This movie hung dong. That will reflect on my
It
score.
hung a lot of dong.
It did.
It also, I mean, it was like full frontal on every part of the human anatomy.
That being said, Mark Ruffalo didn't hang dong in this film.
He didn't.
He didn't.
And if anybody needed to,
It
He
should have
needs
been
it.
him.
did it actually win?
Oh, it won the Oscar for Best Production Design.
Production
As it
design,
should.
but it didn't win costume.
It did not, but it won makeup and hairstyling.
Okay. Those ones
everything
are-
but.
Yeah. Feels weird to miss. What did? Okay. Tell me later on the
The
costume.
makeup was for Willem Dafoe.
Yeah. Just put a little blush on. Like Willem Dafoe is
Makeup is more.
no, it's so much more than that. Willem Dafoe is one of those strangely like objectively ugly, objectively really handsome guys, and it's like
He's not. It just makes you think like he's not from here.
no, yeah, he's an
Yeah.
interesting man.
You know
Willem
he's
Dafoe.
like packing absolute heat.
It's my favorite. No, it's why I'm upset he wasn't hanging dong. It's my favorite fun fact about
Why
Willem
do you
Dafoe,
know
and this
that?
is incredibly relative.
The
crucifixion.
Yeah,
where
go
he is.
ahead.
I don't remember the exact quote, which is a shame because the exact quote is like fantastic. But they were like, he has his uncomfortably large penis.
It would be distracting.
It was distracting, is what it was. Yeah, so he did a crucifixion scene, and his penis was there, and the director of that movie was just like, "What's wrong with Willem? What is that?" And then he's like, "That's
Someone
my penis."
fix him.
And he's like, "That can't be." And he said people were distraught over how large Willem Dafoe's penis was, to the point where they eventually got body doubles in for that specific scene.
Yeah.
And I love that fact about Willem Dafoe. I love it so much, and I'm so upset he didn't hang dong in this movie, because if they're going to show Frankenstein's monster, show Willem Dafoe's penis.
Show
That's
So Willem Dafoe's
Frankenstein's.
monster.
Yes! Yes, Annabeth.
It did win Best Costume.
Did it? Okay, maybe I was wrong. All right.
Sorry, I'm just your little off-camera assistant.
I like
No,
it.
you're
Yeah.
fine. I needed a good fact checker. I thought I got snubbed on that one. I don't know why. Anyways, not the point.
No, Oscars went well last year.
Yeah, they did go well this last year.
Mhm.
Iron
Anyways,
Claw didn't win anything.
yeah, snubbed.
That's
Neither Saltburn didn't win either. Saltburn could have won a best
That was
writing.
wild.
What's
Anyways.
Saltburn?
Anyways, Fat, Thin, Perfectly Fit.
Yeah.
Sure.
Mason.
Entirely too fat. This movie, like, and I don't know if I was just not on board with it early on, and that's why it just felt so long.
Mhm.
I can appreciate her evolution into like because that's what the whole beginning was like. Oh, this girl is she's learning. She's got a tiny brain, but it's it's getting bigger and smarter. 15 words a day, she's learning,
Mhm.
and all this stuff. So it's like it makes sense that she's a full-grown adult by the end, and she's speaking properly, and she's she's doing all these things. But I didn't care much for the beginning. Some of that toddler-esque sort of stuff that she was doing.
Mm.
I really didn't care much for the middle part where she was just having sex with Mark Ruffalo and just putting it all out there all the time. The ending was fine until the unnecessary gentleman came in, the colonel or whatever, the general comes in.
Yeah, General Colonel.
General Colonel Captain Crunch comes in. I don't know. It was fat in a lot of different places. Like, I don't know what I would trim because it's just
All over the place.
it really is, and it's. I guess you could take out little bits, but I mean, they were showing a lot of little bits. So.
Yeah, it was. This movie's thin.
Oh, shut the fuck up.
I needed
You're
more.
a
Dong.
liar.
I needed more Willem Dafoe dong.
Yeah.
I wanted there. I'll say this. I wanted a. No, I'm being a little hyperbolic. This movie is probably. I did feel the runtime. Yeah, I guess I'll call it chubby. I won't go full blown fat on this one because I think that the movie. All the parts that were in it definitely felt like it needed to be in there. I just think it was becoming a little conscious of runtime towards the end. Which I won't say deserves a full blown fat title, but it I just did feel it on that point. But that being
I feel
said,
like you think it's gonna end at the wedding. Or
Yeah.
Very, very soon after that wedding scene,
Right,
because
yeah.
you're like, well, I mean, this is pretty much the contract. This is the
and it could have, and that would have been fine and good.
pretty fine, yeah, because the guy was dying.
I think that the movie has a more powerful ending with the ending that it has, but the problem is that it goes through that weird.
It's overcoming your fear in a way.
Yeah.
It's overcoming that burden that she had originally killed herself
Like
over.
I said, I'm not
Like-
upset that it was in the movie. I'm upset where it was at in the movie and kind of how it was done. I think that narratively that part is important to sit there and say, how did we all get here to begin with? Because that's like the me that wants more out of this. But the movie gave me pretty much everything I wanted out of it except for Willem Dafoe's penis. So yeah.
Here, here.
Can I get a name in?
Amen.
Chubby. Nathan.
I'd say it's pretty fit. It kind of started off with me being quite apprehensive, but the more it went on and the more stuff that was happening, the more I was engaged with it. So by the end of it, like, I would have been interested to see even more, perhaps.
Penis.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I don't know. That might have made it fat. I mean, it's Willem Dafoe.
It's Willem Dafoe's
Oh,
penis.
man. Yeah, how much screen could you possibly use?
Yeah.
This
Would have had it
movie,
zoomed out a little bit.
This-
I used the fisheye line.
Yeah, that's true.
the movie is fat. It is way too fat. It indulges itself so much, and it does in the best ways. When I think like this movie is about Bella and Mark Ruffalo's character, I think that whole section, she grows tremendously in that time. It's hilarious during that time. There's a lot of thought-provoking scenes and stuff that she goes through there in that time. But the beginning of the movie, to get to where like the jumping off point for their adventure is, it takes a little while. You kind of see Bella getting her feet under her, like just like walking weird around the house and doing shenanigans through the house, and Willem Dafoe kind of explaining what's going on with the world and everything, like just showing a lot of what this world has to offer with like the school, the student. And it takes a too long for me for it to get started, and then once it gets to Mark Ruffalo's part, I'm like, this is it. I love this part. And then they come back, and it's like, oh well, this is what we did to you, Bella. You're a real woman now. You're doing all this, and then we're adding the wedding and all that, and it just keeps going. It just keeps going when it needed to have ended about 45 minutes ago. So I thought this was a very fat movie. I mean, that runtime on this is like 2 hours and 20 minutes or something.
It was
It was
lengthy.
way longer than it needed to be.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Could have had a little
Nathan
more.
could have had a little
You
extra.
could have
Yeah.
another 40 minutes on it.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
The movie's not a real movie until it's 3 hours, Nathan.
Oh, yeah.
I got a question if you don't.
Good.
All right. Do you think...
Is this a good question or a
It is.
silly question?
No, this is a good question. Do you think
It's a silly one.
Emma Stone acted this role good?
Acted this role good?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think she
Yeah.
did as amazing as I wanted her to.
Yeah.
She won Best Actress for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the early stages could have been acted by just about anybody. I really do. I think you could have plugged anybody into that part.
I'm on the other end of it. I think the early stages are the hardest parts.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Like
To be
all you had to have was a couple
infantile,
different takes. Yeah, infantile. Exactly.
intellectual disability while in a human
Oh,
body. But
that,
it's
that
still-
reminds me.
Yeah.
I didn't like it. But sorry, that was the answer to that question. That was the answer to the question. I think
You didn't like
I
Emma
don't
Stone,
think
but-
she. Yeah, I don't think she acted all that miraculously to win all kinds of Oscars. But
Okay.
what was the guy's name in Tropic Thunder? Robert Downey Jr.
Robert DJ.
Is that what you're...
Yeah, Simple
Yeah.
Jack.
Simple Jack.
Remember,
I was thinking the same
Same
thing.
thing.
Why
There
you
it
kept
is.
saying...
what is it that Robert Downey Jr. says?
He says, and I quote, "Don't go full retard."
Don't go for it.
End
That's
quote.
all I could think of during this movie because the first half of it was her being infantile, whatever you want to call it, but like,
Yeah, we'll call it IID, infantile intellectual disabilities, to be a little bit more.
and that's all I could
appropriate.
see was Robert Downey Jr. being in blackface, just coming up with his monologue, just looking straight into the,
But the reason, it's funny you draw that comparison because the reason that Simple Jack, the reason that he acts in that is because it's Oscar bait. Is
Yeah.
because
Yeah, exactly.
He does it for the simple fact of
which
like
is even more
every-
like full circle.
everyone,
here.
Yeah.
like to get an Oscar, you have to act like an intellectually disabled person.
Forrest Gump.
Which is why
Like,
Simple Jack did that,
Yeah.
which I think plays into this.
absolutely, and they were riffing off of Forrest Gump.
Did we ever
then.
find out his favorite
Oh, yeah.
movie? Annabeth? Before you sneak off, did we ever find out what the favorite movie is?
We did, but it can wait till y'all are
What
done.
is it?
Sure.
No, we're not going to be here. in a
Yell it
minute.
out.
What is
That's
it?
okay. You can wait.
We won't be here.
It doesn't need to go in the podcast.
It is.
It's already in
Oh,
it
is
It's
it
now.
already
that
in.
bad?
Nathan will cut it out.
What is
No,
it?
you won't. He doesn't cut anything.
Annabeth isn't
You-
that bad.
No, he'll cut
You
it.
remember it.
Ooh, it's that bad. It's holes.
What is it? Yeah. Is it
It's-
really?
How dare you
Oh.
insult Holes?
I thought that was it. I was like,
Oh,
Holes
man.
is such a good
It's
movie.
solid.
It's
but
a-
it shouldn't be a
But
But
favorite
what,
movie.
but what is his favorite?
You guys did say Talladega
We
Nights
did.
earlier.
Yep, I
That
did.
is one of them.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
Nathan.
he said it's hard to choose just one, but his short list is Toy Story, Happy Gilmore,
Okay.
Looney Tunes Back in Action, Talladega Nights, and Cars 3. And with that, I leave you.
I feel like that nailed a lot of bases. here,
Yeah,
though.
that's... Okay.
I don't think it nailed any. Like, what are you saying? Like stuff that we would have liked.
Yeah. I'll
Maybe
take
Toy
Happy
Story.
Gilmore.
I'm not taking
I like Toy
Cars.
Story.
Price, you get Cars.
You get Cars.
I'm not taking.
You would
Dylan
have
gets, Dylan gets Toy,
Toy
Story.
Story, no question. I love Toy
Nathan,
Story.
I don't know what the fuck you get. You can pick. Bye.
Bye.
All right,
You can pick with the other two.
let's do scores.
So let's get into scores, starting with Mason again.
I quite enjoyed all of the side characters in this, like the old lady that Bella kind of befriends and is like, "Oh,
the
have you
goblin.
ever?"
Yeah.
We didn't even
The
talk.
goblin.
We didn't
even talk about
her. We didn't talk
Yeah.
about the nihilist.
Nibbling,
Yes.
nibbling on her earlobes.
Yes.
Oh,
She was
yeah,
like-
the like matron of the
the goblin lady.
Yeah,
Yeah.
She was like,
yeah,
"I
she
haven't
was
had,
tatted
I
up.
haven't
Yeah, she
had
was.
sex in 20 years," and then Bella's just like, "What?"
What?
I enjoyed all of those characters, the little one-offs that like kind of sort of
Yeah,
kept
they were
coming back
fun.
into play. More so than Mark Ruffalo, more so than Bella for the most part. I liked Willem Dafoe and then the student. I thought that those were pretty fun. But unfortunately, this movie did not have enough to keep my interest up. I'm gonna give it a 5. I really didn't like this movie. I think that
Yeah.
I don't think that it deserves. It's just another Oscar movie though, man. Like it just doesn't hit for me.
Just another Oscar
Compare
movie.
this to the
Sign Mason.
Compare this to the King's Speech or something like
I haven't
that.
seen The King's Speech. I probably wouldn't like
What's
that.
This is not an Oscar.
What's the one with
movie.
Anthony Hopkins
You're
as the
crazy.
Catholic priest?
Wait, are you talking about the one they parody in Tropic Thunder?
No.
Another,
like
it's
another
actual
Tropic
Oscar
Tobey
Thunder.
movie.
Maguire and
No, I'll look it up later.
okay.
All right.
Yeah, I can't. I never was all that into this movie from start to finish. Didn't start on a good note for me. The middle I just disliked. I did kind of like the fact you're right. As soon as she started giving away that money and Mark Ruffalo started like pulling his hair out, that was
Yeah.
funny. And I think it was only funny for like 30 minutes until the wedding scene, and it was just like, oh my
No, I get
gosh,
the
this
point.
dude, I don't
Still
care
going.
about this
Yeah.
guy. Yeah, like, and it was, I don't know, how he was introduced was nuts because everyone was just like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, this guy's, yeah, we probably should have wrote him in earlier.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's me.
That's fine.
That's Mason. He's over there.
I feel like we're gonna get a bit of a sandwich review here. Well, that'll make sense here in a minute. I'm gonna give this a 7.5. I really enjoyed my time with this film. The beginning, I think, the beginning and the end, I was uncertain what I was getting into at the beginning of the film. Like, I knew the trailer, and I was like, all right, this movie's gonna be all over the place. And then even still, I was trying to pin the tone, and then the movie was telling me, quit trying to pin the
Yeah,
tone.
we'll pick the tone.
It's
Bucko.
gonna be a little all over, buddy. And I'm like, okay, all right, I'm here for the ride. But once you get into the ride and you're on it, I enjoyed my time with it. Pre-Mark Ruffalo was psychotically kind of fun, and then Mark Ruffalo was really fun. And then by then, we're just meeting absurd characters in wild situations, and we're in a brothel and a whorehouse, and the amount of nudity, and not just nudity for the sake of nudity, but nudity that actually has a purpose with it. Chef's kiss. I do love that. I will admit I have a bias for that. So,
We even saw her with another girl at that in that house.
delightful. Yeah.
Yeah, and she was cool.
Yeah.
Like, she was like probably the closest thing to a
Yeah,
friend.
yeah.
on
Right.
movie long.
Like
I
an
mean, by
actual
the end of
friend.
the movie, she's
She's
like
living
living
together.
As a
Yeah.
partner, yeah.
Right. So altogether, I had a lovely time with it. I think this movie is incredibly unique. I think it deserves a lot of the accolades that it got. Overall, I think the only biggest strikes I have on it is some of the narrative storytelling at the end, and it's not even so much that it shouldn't be there. It's just kind of how and when it got put there. But otherwise, those are the biggest gripes I have with it. It's a 7.5. I had a great time with this film. Nathan.
It's like a different take on Frankenstein,
Yeah.
and I'm a big fan of doing that sort of thing where you take like an old premise and put a
Put a
interesting
different
twist
spin
on it.
Right.
You
And-
said that about another movie. I can't remember what it was.
Mm.
But you keep going while I think
Yeah,
of it.
and I'll also say that I particularly enjoy Frankenstein as a premise too. I've like
Old Gothic horror makes sense.
yeah,
for
I mean
me.
Yeah,
I've read like a book series that's like Frankenstein in New Orleans, and I've watched like pretty much all the Frankenstein movies.
But you haven't
that
seen Jason in New York? Fucked up.
What is it?
That's a movie. I swear to God it is. I think it's
Alright.
like Jason 9.
Yeah, I mean I haven't seen him in space either.
Dude, I'm
Yeah.
gonna pick that
It's
movie.
tiny.
That movie's peak, actually.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of Frankenstein. I think this is a really cool
happening.
premise
I
to
know.
build it over, and Yeah, like I don't know. Like I said in the beginning, it didn't really grab me because I was not that excited about the idea of this whole movie being in black and white. I was afraid it was going to be
Same
mostly
here.
black and white,
Yeah.
and that was just making me flashback quite obviously to The Lighthouse.
So I'm glad you
Yeah.
mentioned that
And
here.
Why
like
did
pretty
you watch
early
it?
on, The Lighthouse?
Yeah.
Because it's like
It seems like a movie you'd
creepy.
watch. Yeah.
It, like I didn't know what it was. I just knew it was like a creepy black and white movie that was
Yeah.
getting a lot of attention and seemed like it would be interesting.
And it's like a not stranded. What do you call that? Like not a bottle
Well,
episode, but something similar to that.
basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, luckily this completely missed that tone. Like I was slowly finding myself like concerned that it was gonna go that direction, and it went a totally different way. Weirdly, still had a lot of masturbation in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is an odd parallel. But yeah, I mean this movie's great. Like the visuals are great, the costuming's great, the like odd music I think was good because I feel like it was doing what it was supposed to do, like being kind of off-putting at times. I think everybody acted in this quite well. We didn't really talk about the Niles character, but I really liked him.
Mhm.
I really liked the whole thing where she was like getting into like revolutionary France and like the ideals and stuff like that. Like that was just neat. Like there's just a lot going on with this movie that I found pretty enjoyable. I think I'll probably land at like an 8.5 on it.
I swear that was the exact score I had for you. It was 8.5.
I mean, a character gets radicalized and an artsy style goth influence one on that. Yeah, I pegged Nathan as the high score on this
And
one
it's
pretty quick.
whimsical.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Well,
It is.
Dylan was definitely correct on that sandwich metaphor because
Yeah.
depending on which part of the Oreo you like the most, the least liked side is on the outside this time. Because
said we're the cream.
Got
it.
There's
You
a lot
guys
of
can
that
be
in
the
this.
cream.
Yeah, there is.
I did not enjoy the majority of my time with this movie. One of the biggest things for me that I always say for you all when it comes to movies is rewatchability. And there is no universe I ever want to watch this movie again. It is
Oh, there's
so...
some clips I've seen over and over again.
I didn't rewind them more than 10 times.
Yeah.
It's just so dang long, and by the time that the wedding comes up, I'm like, this needs to be over. And then it keeps going for another 30 minutes? No, that's...
And he
that
also dies in
is
like
so
the most
bad.
bullshit way ever.
Oh yeah.
Like she just slowly approaches him and like pulls the gun and shoots his foot and he bleeds out?
Yeah.
Question mark?
Bro, you ever been shot in the foot?
No, but I feel like I would hike my foot up.
Bro, these aren't smart characters. And he fought in
You're
a
right.
war. He should
She
know
was
better.
she was a genius by the end of it.
Well,
This is the best experiment ever.
well, it's still... I hated
So
I hated the
resentful.
music. I like, again, this is another thing I keep saying whenever we do scores, is that I hate when I feel the director's hand on the movie. And this one, it is all over it. And it's like leading you like, oh, this is how you're supposed to feel at this point. This is how you're supposed to feel at this point. You see these poor people in the pit, these stairs, like they didn't have the opportunities that they have. Like, oh, okay, real novel idea here. Just like the past lives, the splitting shot or whatever.
Beautiful
You
shot.
leave
Oh,
that.
right.
You leave it
shot
alone,
out
it's a
of
good
this.
shot, Bryce.
We've been telling you for
Yes,
months.
that's art.
Oh, I hated it so much. But at the same time, like I said, I really love that Mark Ruffalo chunk with them just gallivanting around and just her exploring herself and finding things out, and just the dialogue is so funny in this movie. So many witty things being said so quickly. I mean, there's one part where near the beginning of the movie where a baby starts crying and Bella just gets
She
up and
takes the knife after it.
Yeah.
and Mark Ruffalo's like, "What are you doing?" She's like, "I must go punch that baby."
Yeah. We didn't talk enough about the comedic lines in this film.
Yeah, there's a ton of them in this, and they're all funny. They all land. The comedic elements of this land really well, but the symbolism they're trying to get through this movie, where like I saw a comment that somebody said I thought was really funny, is that like Poor Things did what Barbie was trying to do for feminism, but better.
Shut up.
And that killed me, because you have the super subtle version of like Poor Things, and then the over the head beat yourself with a paddle Barbie
I
kind
don't
of
know how subtle I'd
stories.
really say Poor Things was. But,
Yeah, that.
But I've not seen Barbie, so I don't know. Maybe it is much more.
Well, to
subtle.
say that one's over the top is very sure. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm with you. The subtleties are not lost.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed the like pro-feminine parts of this movie.
Mhm.
Like
Sure.
I think they did a really good job. with
Yeah,
it.
that's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah, and it was more subtle. That's why I said
Yeah.
this did a better version than Barbie, 100%. But at the same time, I did not enjoy most of my time with this movie. It's way too long. It is a 3.5 for me. It was just, I don't know. It didn't get me.
3.5 is something that does not get brought out a lot in this podcast.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Price actually really liked this one if you gave it a 3.5.
That's what I'm saying. I feel like it was way above.
See,
Frontier.
Mason's 5 is like my 1. So it's,
No.
yeah, it is.
No.
Where did this
Your
fit?
1 is a 1.
Your-
Quit using it so
Your
liberally.
1 is better than a
This one.
Frontier score.
A clip of that came up 2 years ago. We watched that movie, and it was that clip of her doing it was on my Snapchat.
Good.
Yeah.
Based on the wheel.
Wait, what was it?
Whoa, whoa,
It was
whoa.
an arrow.
What? Oh.
It was
oh,
here.
I'm joking, your
so it was
test.
here.
Oh, Nathan.
Nathan,
What's this?
you want to live forever?
Question mark.
Oh, alright, so pretty easy. This is Super Troopers.
Thank you.
Wait, no.
Wait, did we
No,
watch
sorry,
that?
no,
Star
sorry,
Troopers.
sorry,
Starship Troopers. There
Okay.
we go.
That's-
Somebody's been playing some Helldivers
Yeah.
lately.
Can we play Helldivers?
I mean, whenever I put that on the list, it was because of Helldivers.
It was
for
Helldivers,
sure.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I would like to see.
No, you said Super
I'd
Troopers.
like to see it.
You said too late. We gotta watch it
no,
again.
we gotta watch
For
it
a
again.
moment, I was
Yeah.
like, we're watching the second one because I was like, kind of mad on it.
It was okay.
Nah, yeah, Starship Troopers.
Cool.
Yeah.
Isn't there a meme from this where it's like, I'm gonna serve too? Or...
I'm doing my
doing
part.
yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. There's a lot of memes.
There's a ton of memes from that.
I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to it. I hear this movie referenced a lot.
We've never seen
you've
it?
Never seen
Never
it?
I've
No.
seen the first like
You're-
15.
you're-
minutes.
Don't say anything. I don't want to hear it.
Alright.
There's healthy nudity in this scene too.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah.
Right at the start.
More
right?
Yeah.
or less than this movie.
Slightly less.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, I mean, you're not.
My bar is so high now.
You're
Yeah.
not seeing like full dong and like
Full bush.
and full bush.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hate that you didn't get both.
Routinely.
No.
Routinely.
So, anyways, make sure to tune in for a very what's the word?
Non-explicit.
Diplomatic
No.
episode. Very liberty.
Patriotic.
Thank you. Very patriotic episode of the F Movie Podcast next week with. I wanted to say.
Starship Troopers.
I almost just said Helldivers.
Oh, I
Yeah.
thought you were
For
gonna say
democracy.
Super Troopers.
For democracy, for liberty. Yeah. Anyway.
Super Earth.
All the quotes. If you like the content we're doing, let us know in the comments below. What did you think? Do you think that they should have been Willem Dafoe's penis? I do. Do you think? I mean,
I
what?
thought it would have been too distracting.
Yeah, that's fair. Wildly distracting. Should we keep shooting in storms? Probably not, but we keep doing it. And anyways, make sure to hit the bell so you know when that next video comes up.
He got it.
Thank you. And if we're still 69 subscribers, you're fine.
Appreciate that.
Keep that up. Don't keep it down. Don't bring it up. 69 is just fine. If you're at 68, make sure to subscribe. Just one. And if we're at 70, make sure to unsubscribe. Again, just one. That's our show, guys. Make sure to tune in next week for Starship Troopers. Bye!
Do you all think that we'll need our PSN account to log in to watch this?
Nah, they've
Yeah,
walked it back.
That's been
Yeah.
fixed.
We
No, I know.
we nuked them. We told Sony, get fucked.